Progress.
Special council meeting on June 14th at 3 o'clock to discuss the budget. Everybody please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anybody like to say a prayer or just have a moment of silence? Amen. Okay. Mandy, you want to start this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mayor Dunn,
Here.
Vice Mayor Inskeep,
Here.
Councilperson Mendoza.
Here.
Councilman Rex Lehman,
Here.
Councilwoman Jan Covich,
Present.
Jan Smith, Finance Officer. Here. Chad Ward, Public Works Manager.
Here.
Julie Danowski, Records Clerk.
Here.
Kelly Wyan, Community Development.
Here.
Chief Scaglione,
On the way.
he's on the way. Lieutenant Bray,
Here.
and we do not have legal counsel present for this meeting. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website and City Hall Bulletin Board on Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. And I would like to remind everyone to please speak into your microphones tonight. We've been getting some complaints that people can't hear people on Zoom or the recording is not picking up.
Okay. Yes, I agree. People have called me and said the same thing. Apparently, I'm the only one that they can hear because I have a loud voice. But anyway. Okay. Jan, would you like to run this meeting, or how would you like us to proceed?
No, that's okay. Let me start, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Council, I have been asked to basically start off slow with this budget season and kind of give you a rundown of the budget process. And this meeting is kind of a kickoff to the budget season, and I'm going to talk about the budget process itself, and then we're going to get into just revenues tonight. Today. If we have time, maybe you want to move on to, one or two departments. Let's see how far we get, how much time we want to spend today. I did put in front of you kind of a calendar that Tim and I worked on. It was really his idea, and I went along willingly with it. And it just talks about how we're going to proceed. So again, this first meeting is a kickoff, and we're going to talk about the budget since most of you are new to the process, and revenues. Our next meeting, we're going to start getting into the meat of things as far as the departments. And then on July 12th is when you have to certify your proposed millage rate. July 24th will be Public Works and CRA. So the goal is to kind of have everything pretty much wrapped up by the end of July, even though I'm not going to have all the information. So I'll continue to produce schedules and keep you all updated. So the first thing I thought about talking about is, what makes up the budget. The budget itself has four parts. You got revenues, you got transfers in from reserve, you've got expenses, and you've got transfers out. What I mean by transfers in, primarily it's for capital items. It can be for operations at certain times. In this budget, there are no transfers, no reserves to fund operations, just strictly capital. Those, along with revenues, are shown in the revenue section of your budget. Then you go to expenses. And in the expenses, you have the itemized departmental expenses. Within those departments are your transfers out to reserve. For example, and I'm going to use gas taxes because so far in this budget, the 5th cent gas tax, which is for capital only, is not being spent. So I have shown that in Chad's Roads and Streets budget as a transfer to reserve. That's the only way to get this budget to balance. Because you have to, when reserves are involved, they've got to be included in the equation. And that's the best way to show it in our budget. So it's not a true expense. So when you're looking at these budgets, you really have to look at each line item, because Chad's budget may be $1 million. But if there's a transfer to reserve, depending on how much that is, let's just say it's $60,000, well, his budget truly isn't $1 million for the year. It's $1 million minus the $60,000 that's going to be put in the bank, not spent. So that's kind of how you have to look at when you're looking at the budgets. I have given you 2 reports. As I explained in the email, the short one, the smaller one, that has more pages, shows every single line item and anything associated with each and every line item. What makes it up? This longer report is a comparison of years. It's a higher level presentation showing you let's say, operating supplies in the department. Here you're going to see, well, what are some of those supplies that are going to be ordered? Here you're just going to see a total operating supply for a department. I've provided a table of contents so you can compare the 2 reports. What you see in one report, you'll be able to go to the other report and see that same information. So that's kind of how you have to use these reports. With the summary report, I also give you some ancillary schedules. For general information, I give you an ad valorem schedule. I show you a reconciliation, which I'm going to go over all of this. Probably not tonight, but in future budget workshops. So you'll get a full, hopefully a full education on the budget, and it may be overwhelming, but I'm here for questions. If anybody wants to see me at a later time, please let me know, and we can sit down and go over this. Revenues, you've got a few classifications of revenues. You've got statutorily restricted revenues. For example, gas taxes. Those are restricted for roads and streets, as an example. You've got revenues that are restricted by legislation, such as council resolutions. For example, when we established the police building reserve, there was money we'd taken in on 1 cent sales tax that I was directed via resolution to move into a reserve. That's legislatively directed. Then you've got your unrestricted reserves, which can be used for anything the council deems appropriate. Municipalities have very limited opportunity for new revenue sources. And we cannot impose anything that gives the appearance of a tax. So if you want to call something a surcharge, we can't do it. A surcharge is a tax. I'll give you an example. Years ago, a council member wanted to charge every boat rental place, that every person who rented a boat or a kayak $1. And that dollar would come to the city. Wanted to call it a surcharge. It was a tax. We couldn't do it. So us finding new revenue sources is very limited. We can impose user fees, such as for the boat ramp, but when we impose user fees, they must be used for the purpose we've collected it. For example, user fees at the boat ramp, we have an ordinance that basically says if we collect something, it's going to be used at a park that provides boating. It can be used for anything in that park, but that park has to provide boating. You can't use it to fund anything else. So your user fees are very specific. So bottom line, we're pretty stuck with what we've got. So we just try and make the most of it. Expenses. We've got 2 types of expenses, operating and capital. The difference being capital expenses are for assets, even a car, that will last more than 1 year. How I account for that is several different ways, which may be too much information, more than you want to know. But even if something cannot be what's called capitalized for accounting purposes, when we take depreciation, we can still use capital money. let's say for, our capitalization threshold is $5,000, which means anything we buy, 5,000 or more, single item, I have to account for it separately. But if we purchase something that will last a year or more for under $5,000, we are still permitted to use capital money. It's up to council if you want to go that route, if you want to use operating money. It's really better to use capital money for anything that would be deemed capital, because your millage rate affects operations only. Doesn't participate in capital purchases. It could if we had enough money, but primarily it's to fund just operating, your office supplies, your operating supplies, your salaries and benefits, those type of things. In this long report, I have it separated out in each department, what is personnel and operating, and I give you a subtotal, operations, because personnel is included in that. And then capital is all by itself. So my role besides putting this whole thing together, is to determine what funding source is going to cover that expense. So I look at it as operations, well, how much money do we have in the bank? What's the millage rate that I'm estimating, starting to prepare this at? What new monies do we have coming in that is for operations? And then what's left over for capital? And what do we have in reserves? So that's where the transfers in from reserve. It's a combination of possibly any new money coming in, such as 1 cent sales tax, which is for capital only. If we don't have enough new 1 cent sales tax money coming in, then I look at what we have in reserve left over from prior years, and I make up that difference. And this is all presented to council to say, yes, we want to keep it in, no, we don't want to do it that way. So this is my best estimate of the department's wants and needs. And then your review will say what stays in, what goes, or if you're very happy with what I've done and we don't have to make any changes. That's what I'm hoping comes out of today. Basically, that's the budget 101. We've got 4 months. That's it. Funding sources have to be identified. Does that give you a good enough overview of the budget? Did I confuse anybody?
No.
Sharon, would you explain reserves?
I'm sorry.
Would you explain reserves?
Reserves are money we have in the bank. It's funds that have been received in prior years or current year that aren't being spent. They go into a reserve that I'm sorry I didn't bring a reserve schedule with me. I can go get it. But I have given you all a copy of the reserves with definitions next to it as to what each reserve, you could kind of look at it as an individual bank account, even though it's not. But you could interpret that to be separate bank accounts for specific uses,
Okay.
to simplify it. But it pretty much is all commingled money into just a few bank accounts to capitalize on interest rates. But the reserves are money that we have on hand that we can either pull into the current budget, we can adopt this budget as it stands, and as the year progresses, oh, there's a major need. If we have to amend the budget, it would come from a reserve, depending on what the item is. It could come from a gas tax reserve if it's for a road. It could come from the 1 cent sales tax reserve if it's something for the police department. It could come from another just general capital reserve. So that's something that is discussed with you all when the need arises. And then you really say, okay, we'll take it from this reserve or another reserve. I'm always going to try and give you options and give you my opinion on what I think is the best way to use it. And then if I'm overruled, so be it. I'm only here to kind of give you my opinion, and that's what it is. If it were up to me, we would never touch reserves. But that's not realistic.
Right.
we have to spend them. And not for nothing, that's one reason why the county came in and took away reduced our gas tax reserves. Because they basically said we weren't spending it.
They took away our what?
They reduced our gas tax reserve, our gas tax allocation. We used to receive over $400,000 in gas tax monies, both for operating and capital. They reduced the formula down to, we now receive under $100,000.
But were they able to do that?
Absolutely,
They could.
yes, they could. What happened was we signed interlocal agreements for the distribution. It's collected within the county and distributed to all the municipalities. Well, the 30-year agreement that expired had a formula in there that they couldn't trace back to anything. How we were getting, I want to say it was 2.53% of what was collected. They couldn't determine how that 2.53% was derived. So they tasked all of us with coming up with a new formula that was fair and equitable to everybody, including the county. We couldn't. None of us could. What helped the county and Bellevue and Dunnellon hurt Reddick and McIntosh.
Right.
So what the county did was, they said, if you can't come up with a formula, we have to use the state's default formula, which is 0.63%. That's what we get. And that's $300,000 at the time. That was quite a number of years ago.
Yeah.
So we've had reductions in revenues because the county could do it. They took away one of the taxes completely because they could. There was no statutory requirement that they share it with the municipalities. So we're at the county's mercy for this.
Seeing that consistently.
Yeah, and unless you all can lobby, the commissioners and get them to change their minds, we just want to go with what we've got.
I have a question. As I understand it, our loan through Regions we're paying that off at $172,000 a year.
175 is through, it's been sold, so it's through Apex Bank.
And does that come out of the general fund?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a meeting with Kathy Brown about the gas taxes. And what Jan's saying is right. That new formula that she's talking about was actually done, I think it was 10 years ago.
Was it that long?
Yeah, I looked it up. It actually expires in August of this year, where we're down to this 63%. And the way she explained it, kind of a roundabout way, is the closest way you can figure this out is they look at the total population of Marion County, and we get our share of that based on the population of Dunnellon. So if we want to increase the amount of money we get for this tax, we got to increase our population. Now, there's a little bit more to it, but is a ballpark kind of way of figuring it out. It's 2,000 divided by 365,000. And that's what we get of these gas taxes. There is no intention. I asked her if the county was going to change that. She said, nope, we don't intend to, we won't. In August, we'll renew it. So we're kind of stuck. So this drove me to the conclusion very quickly that the only way we're ever going to get any more money is expand the population of our town. And I want to say something else because it's something Jan and I keep going over, and I keep forgetting to bring it up when we ask the budget. It's a good time to do it. The other thing I've learned in this, which makes absolutely no sense at all, and I'm going to give you an example. If you go to Publix here in Dunnellon and you spend $100 for food, you pay sales tax. Right? You go to Winn-Dixie right up the road, it's just outside the city, you spend $100, you pay sales tax. Which one gives us more sales tax in Dunnellon? They give us the exact same amount. So as long as you buy something in Marion County, we get a share of it. If you go to Crystal River or Citrus County and spend your money, we don't get any of it. I have personally changed the way I buy things. I don't go to Rural King in Crystal River, I go to Rural King in Ocala, for example. The other thing I've learned is this gas tax. The gas tax is insane the way it works, and it's set by the state. It's really not even set by Marion County. There's 9 or 10 different cents taxed, and I can tell you what frustrates me is one of those through legislation goes to Dade County and the city of Miami 100% wherever you buy that gas in the state of Florida. So they had a very strong lobby in Miami, like there. The other thing that I've learned, taking that one step further, again, the other gas taxes do come back to Marion County if you buy your gas in Marion County. So again, I don't go to Crystal River, and I don't go to Levy County, and I don't go to Citrus County to buy gas. But buying gas on 200 or buying gas in Dunnellon, we get the same amount of tax. So these are things I've learned, and it does not make any sense to me. Again, it comes from my background. In the states I have lived in before, when I help people fill out their sales tax returns, those sales tax returns were done by county, city, and state. And you collected your sales tax and you sent it to the Capitol, and they turned around and sent back. And they sent back exactly what was paid by that county and that city. State of Florida doesn't. They just send it back to county, and the county decides they'll send it. Which, the good news is, if they build a new Walmart in Ocala, we get some of that sales tax, even though it's not done. But it doesn't benefit you from a tax viewpoint for the city of Dunnellon to buy it at Walmart here. Now, I think it does benefit us for other reasons, but not for sales tax.
Property tax it does. Give you an example, Walmart pays roughly $54,000 a year to the city of Dunnellon for property tax.
And their taxes are based on revenues. That's how revenue generating businesses, that's how their property taxes are assessed. So the more money that Walmart generates,
Right.
the more we get.
So clearly it's better to spend your money in Dunnellon, but what I'm saying is if you have an option to go to Citrus County to buy gasoline or go to Ocala to buy gasoline, I'd go to Ocala because we get the money. If you go to Citrus County, you don't get anything. But again, it's better to spend the money here in Dunnellon, but what I'm trying to explain to you is it doesn't really matter. As long as you spend your sales tax, spend your gas tax in Marion County, we're going to get the same amount.
Right, but the problem with that is that when we have the river, which provides, I know there's at least 3 or 4 operators, and those people come into Dunnellon, then they go to Walmart, but they're in our roads, they're using those roads, all of our services, and all that money goes to Marion County, and then we gotta go on our hands and knees and beg them for money to replace the stuff that they're getting money that's getting more out. So is that pretty fair?
No, that's a very true statement, because I actually argued with Kathy Bryant on this point that, yeah, we have a population of a little less than 2,000, except on the weekends. And then it's about 20,000.
So
we have to provide police, roads, everything for 20,000 people when you're only giving me a share of 2,000.
Right.
She didn't buy it, but that's okay.
See, Marion County has their own struggles.
Yeah.
So for them to give up anything, forgive me how I put this, it's like pulling teeth. They're not going to unless there is such an uproar, a valid reason, a state mandate. We're not going to see it.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to live within our means.
Mhm.
And the department heads do a darn good job.
Yeah.
We haven't been over budget. You know, we've done budget amendments as a precaution. When I've come to you for a budget amendment, statutorily, budgets must be amended by November 30 of each year. We're nowhere near ready to wrap up our year-end numbers. So I will do that as a precaution and maybe never move the money. But we are statutorily in compliance. If by the time the auditors get here and find out, oh, we did need that little bit from that reserve.
Okay.
So budget amendments are a precaution, primarily a precaution for finance. And you all, keep you in compliance, because it would be Dunnellon that's not in compliance. So I just try and keep things legal. Moving on to steps to adopt the budget. We're going over what I've put together so far. As time goes on, I'll get better revenue estimates from the state. Other things I already have prior to this meeting, I have to increase expenses by $8,444 because of property insurance and our financial software. I got a better estimate that finally came in. So these numbers are going to change. These are by no means final. And I did prepare the budget at a 6.3 millage rate. That's what the current year is, and I've just followed suit. Every year I start out with what our current millage rate is. And then I'm directed either what to do with it. So the next step, aside from the next workshop, where we'll get into expenses, and I've hopefully fine tune some things if I have in a couple weeks. Anything else to add? On July 12th, you will be certifying your property, Dunnellon's property value, and you will be setting your proposed millage rate and your budget hearing dates. All these processes and these items are date driven. There's very little room for fluctuation.
Right.
If there's a declared disaster, then there's a formal process where everything stops and they allow us to continue after the disaster has passed. So things are very strict with regard to the TRIM process. TRIM stands for True Good Millage. So when you certify your property value in the form that I'll be preparing for you, where the property appraiser has appraised our property and set a value, you'll certify that, and then you're going to say, okay, what are we going to set our millage rate at? You can't go higher. So my suggestion is go as high as you would be reasonably comfortable with. If we can't trim expenses, and we need that. It's possible. We haven't had to do that. In prior years, it was set at 7 mils. We haven't had to go there in a long time. I'll give you an example. Property insurance is estimated to increase between 60 and 75% this year. That is a difference of, hopefully I wrote it down, from what I recall, about $54,000 increase.
Coming into the city.
No,
Going
we
out.
have to pay.
Oh, excuse me.
So that's a $50,000 budget increase,
Right.
right off the top.
Right.
And our insurer is one of the lowest. And we got an email that said, great news. Your estimated increase is one of the lowest on the West Coast. Well, I won't tell you what I thought about great news, okay?
That's good.
So just to let you know, that's why I'm just guiding you as far as what to set your proposed
Right.
rate at. It's not the final rate, okay? We still have a long process to go to and some tweaking to do. Hopefully, we wouldn't need to go higher than 6.3, but I don't have any salary adjustments worked in here. I
Right.
don't have final insurance values. Maybe it'll come in at 60%.
Yeah.
I have to increase the budget. I'm going to increase it to 70%.
Mhm.
I'd rather be 5% wrong than 15% wrong.
Right.
And us to be surprised and have to script that. So, and we have until the end of September, till our final public hearing to tweak this budget.
Right.
So we got time.
I have a question just because I don't know. You said our millage rate is 6.3?
Yes.
How much do you, if you have to raise, do you have to raise it at like 0.2 or is there a set rate? That's the
Our
first.
cap is 10 mils.
Okay, no, but say can we go from 6.3 to 6.5?
Yes.
What does each increase in, say, say 1 mil for, what does that equate into actual taxes on, say, like, a house? Like, if you had a house of $100,000?
Well, 1 mil equates to $204,555 total
For the
for the
entire,
entire city. I'd have to get a calculator and calculate that. I'm not going to do math
No, okay.
in my head.
No.
But I can provide you that, based on our millage rate, what taxes on, roughly a home that is for taxable value is assessed at, say, $100,000. Right now, at 6.3 mils, if your house, and you've got your exemptions, it's not that your house is just $100,000.
Right.
Okay, this is after exemptions, you would pay $630 in taxes.
so if it was 6.5, you'd pay 650.
650, yes, but if you'll turn, since we're talking millage, if you'll turn to the last page, it's the last page of the summary. I give you a breakdown of various millage rates
Okay.
and what it means for the city as well as CRA. Because our ad valorem taxes are shared with CRA
Right.
based on our millage rate. Marion County's taxes that are contributed to CRA is based on Marion County's millage rate in the 4%.
Okay.
So that breaks it down. Now, we can break it down further. You know, you may say, well, let's not do 6.3, but let's do 6.295.
Right.
It can be broken down any which way. 10 mils is our cap. And I also, on this schedule, on the last page, tell you how many votes are needed to pass it, but your votes.
Oh, okay.
Because if you were to go to 8.8561,
Yeah.
it would take a unanimous vote,
Okay.
which you can do it if you all vote for it.
Right.
If you don't, well, we gotta go lower. So I've tried to give you some scenarios with what different rates
Okay.
would achieve.
Okay. And the last I do have one more question on that. Florida does have that cap on the property taxes where you have an existing property. So say like when I bought my house, I got it for $540. Now I'm seeing it on Zillow for $840. So I'm still taxed at the $540 in that. So any gains we have in property taxes are going to be off of new purchases this year. If somebody buys a house this year in Dunnellon, it'll reflect the new valuation on their property taxes.
Yes, but property taxes are assessed as of January 1st.
Right.
So if it's bought this year, it doesn't count.
No, but I mean, I'm
But
just
yeah,
trying to outline the
yes,
process.
You are correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I was just trying to, I just want to make sure I understood.
Oh, no, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, if I could maybe clarify or be wrong with this statement, but I think that property taxes can go up. The law is they can't go up by more than 3% a year.
Right.
As long as they're homestead.
As long as
It's
they're.
gotta be homestead.
So-
And because unhomesteaded property, I think is 10%. I'd have to look it up, but like if you own a vacant lot, okay, so it's not homestead. I own a vacant lot, it can go up 10%. My house can't.
Right. So the last question I've got on that, so a big debate now is the short-term rentals. So as soon as they take it to a short-term rental and it becomes a business, they then lose the homestead.
There's the homestead, yes, sir.
So then they would be able to be taxed at the full valuation.
Absolutely. So the short-term rentals, for all the negativity, add more to our funding ability.
Right.
And the expense. I know there's, the
Yeah.
downside to everything, but it's not totally
Yeah.
downside.
Because the downside would be that it wouldn't count as the population. My understanding is that once it becomes a short-term rental, it won't be counted in our population base anymore.
That I'm not, that
And then that would be a decrease in what we would get in other areas, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and anyway, it's just something to think about. Yeah.
Unless it's a residence.
What?
If it's a residence, they're counted in the census.
But if it's a short-term rental, it ceases to be a residence.
That's true.
What?
But I wonder if they're still counted in the census. I mean, because the census.
The
is more
census
than
is
more
one thing, but if
per
they're
property.
counting the residents, so that's something that's my understanding, is that once it goes to a short-term rental, it no longer counts, it doesn't count as a residence
In the office of.
for the counting the population, so they're,
Check that out.
what?
You gotta check that out.
Because what we could then see is we'll make more money over there, but then in the long run, we could, because it's been pointed out that for every one of those, that's one less person going to church on Sunday, because they don't do that, so it's going to have a lot of effect. But
And the Office of Economic and Demographic Research estimates Dunnellon's population every year.
yeah,
I'm not sure what they base it on.
Okay.
But we do get an estimate,
Yeah.
which that is what is used for
Okay.
our revenues that the state sends to us. Because they base the sharing on that estimate.
okay, well, I just want to clarify to make sure I understood it right.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into the census side.
Oh,
of
okay.
this. So anyway, in July, you're going to establish your proposed millage rate, regardless of what I've used to prepare this budget. You're going to set a millage rate. You may decide to set it at 6.3, what I've already started with here. I don't recommend that because I think we need some wiggle room in case I get the final property insurance dollar amount, and that's 75%, and I got to work in 5% more into this budget, 5% more expense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you need to leave yourself some wiggle room.
Right.
Directing me up in whichever way you want to direct me to go.
Okay.
But just at least allow it. And when you get to your hearing, when you get to your hearings in September, your first public hearing, you're going to set what's called a tentative millage rate. That's where you're going to say, okay, what millage rate are we really looking at?
Mhm.
Okay, let's say you've set it at 7, you're proposed.
Mhm.
September, okay, 6.3 sounds good to you.
Mhm.
So now you're going to set your tentative at 6.3.
Mhm.
The proposed is advertised to your residents on your trim notice that goes out in August.
Mhm.
Your tentative millage rate will be advertised in the newspaper. That's up to me to place the ad. Once you set your tentative, you can't go higher.
Right.
And then you'll set your final millage rate at the last hearing in September. So the goal is to have these workshops, to get to right before your first public hearing with a budget that you're pretty well satisfied with. And then you hear from the public.
Mhm.
Then you make your decision on if you're going to change it to the budget. But you really should go into September with a good feel that you can live with this,
Mhm.
if that's what it turns out to be. Because hopefully we have tweaked it as much as you can see we've tweaked it. And if I've got all the estimates in that I can possibly get, then that's what it's going to be. Doesn't mean you can't cut expenses further at that point and lower your millage rate more, but then you have to decide where you cut. Because revenues are pretty much going to be fixed at that point. And there's no guarantee we get those revenues in like they're estimated either.
Right.
Because it's our best guesstimate. The state is pretty good. The few I get from the state, that comes in pretty close, if not sometimes a little more. But the others, the charges for services like copying and record search, that's an estimate I base on maybe several years worth of what have we taken in, and I do an average.
Right.
And we could come in a lot less. So that's why we monitor the budget all year
Yeah.
so that we stay within. So that's really your whole budget and your budget process. Do you have any questions?
I have one question. Did you say something about if we go from 6.3 to 6.4, how much total dollar amount that raises in revenue,
Well,
property taxes?
I don't think I've calculated a tenth of a point. 1 mil is a couple $100,000. So divide that.
That's what I mean. What would 1 mil?
One mil Now, one thing I want to say with revenue, with ad valorem taxes, we don't budget 100% of what is estimated to come in, because if you pay in November, you get a discount.
Right.
So we budget, and we have to budget it, excuse me, at least 95%.
Right.
We can budget 98%, but we can't budget less, and that's according to the two statute.
Right.
So, 1 mil will bring into the city $204,555.
Okay.
That's as of this first estimate from the county.
Right.
That will change slightly.
Right, so what I'm getting to is, you've got these expenses that, like insurance, have gone up. Okay, and we put in 6.3. If we go to 6.4, what this tells me is, we might have around $200,000 more income coming in to offset whatever these other expenses, including insurance, may go up.
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out in my mind, okay, if we start learning, okay, this is gonna be more, 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 and you add all that up, and let's say, worst case scenario, it's $600,000, well, that tells me we gotta go up three mils. You see what I'm saying? You follow me? If it's around $200,000?
Yes, that's.
Okay, that's what I was trying to keep in my mind.
Just
That
to
is
clarify, when you said that for the $200,000, how much does the millage rate have to go up for that?
1 mil.
Oh,
So if you want an extra
okay.
200.
1 mil is a tenth of a percent, or that's some 6.3 to 6.4?
1 mil is 1%, basically.
Oh, okay, so, but you were saying 6.4, so really it would be going to 7.4.
7.4, that's correct.
Okay.
If we needed another 200,000
It would,
on
yeah.
top of what we've done here, yes, we would have to go to 7.4.
Oh, okay. That's what, because I thought he said 6.4.
And if we need 600,000 more dollars, then you're talking about going to 9.4.
Right, okay, okay. I understand it. I just wanted to clarify, okay.
So, and with the budget that I prepared, I've always tried to come in with a balanced budget where revenues equal expenses. I did not do that this time because I don't have all the expenses.
Right.
And with salaries, the way they are currently, I'm showing roughly a surplus of about $72,000. With all the expenses the departments have given me, and the very, very conservative estimates that I've done for expenses and revenues. I've been more conservative this year than I ever have, because last year was really wonky. And I will get state estimates for certain revenues. And they'll start coming in the end of July. There was one last year that was very late in the year that gave us an extra $20,000. That had never happened before.
Right.
That was one of our largest revenues. So I'm just going to hold my breath. I would rather be way conservative and be surprised, because some revenues could come in slightly lower. And it's worked so far. Again, without any salary adjustments that you're going to be talking about later tonight. So there's still a lot more work to do.
Right.
But with revenues, let's get into looking at the revenues. If you'll take this report, your line item detail, we're going to go page by page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what each of these line items can be used for.
Okay.
Is this where you want, Dan?
No, the line item detail.
Where you want the detail?
I guess because we don't have an audience, I haven't been paying attention to the script. And like I said, we're just going to go page by page and just revenues, because you've got revenues and expenses in this document. The first revenue source is your ad valorem taxes. That is your largest out of all the revenues we get. The 1.463 is our first estimate that the property appraiser has given me. Ad valorem can be used for any purpose you all deem necessary. There's no restriction on it. delinquent taxes is the next item.
Jane, can I hold you up a minute?
Sure.
The 1.463 million, is that reflective of 95%?
Yes.
Gotcha. One more question. Is there an easy way to know what is the business portion and what is residential portion?
I
Gotcha.
have to contact it.
Okay, gotcha. I wouldn't think so. I won't ask. Okay, thanks.
The next is delinquent taxes. Every year I budget $5,000 because I never know what we're going to get in. One year I think we got in 15,000. The next year it was about 1,000. So this is just kind of a placeholder because there's always a little bit of delinquent tax that comes in. Your next item, now these are shown as negatives because this is an accounting software, and revenues in accounting software are shown as negative amounts. This CRA transfer is a positive amount. This is money that's coming out of the general fund and going into CRA. So that 1.463 ad valorem number, subtract 274,900 from it. And that's our ad valorem proceeds that the general fund will get to keep. And I've given you the calculations, showing you the formulas for the CRA. We have 3 CRA areas. And it's all based on the incremental increase from when those areas were established.
Okay,
Next,
so the 1.463 million actually gets reduced by almost 275,000.
correct.
Okay. And that must only be spent on CRA type stuff. Okay.
That I have to transfer, whether we've received our tax money or not, I have to transfer that money to CRA by December 31st of each year.
Gotcha. So we truly don't have 1.463 million to spend on
No.
anything. We have that less the CRA.
Correct.
Gotcha.
The next item, the original local option gas tax. This is what we have on our books. We call it the 6-cent gas tax. This is for roads and streets, department only, and it's to be used for operations. If there's any left over, you could use it for capital, but usually roads and streets operations is more than $98,000. The next item, the new local 5-cent gas tax, is again for roads and streets only, capital items. This amount is $63,000. I show this year as an expense in roads and streets because I don't have anything that we're spending next year. I've been able to fund Chad's capital requests with other revenues, which we'll get into more detail. But this is money that's just going to go in the bank.
Which one are you on, Jan?
I'm on the very last one,
The 5 cent?
the 5 cents.
Just a question, if putting this in the bank, this isn't gonna be like the other money where Marion County can come back and say, well, we're taking it back.
They won't take it back, but if they could reduce it, they would.
Right.
Yeah, this is one of those items. We have to come up with a different formula, and they're not going to change it because the state is so low, the state default formula. That's already so low, they're not going to go low. And they're going to really have money to do
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, money like that, should we be looking at if we have a capital expense that we can repair so it gets spent, so that they don't come back next year and say, well, we're gonna give you less money because you just put it in the bank?
Now, this is not for repairs,
Okay,
this is capital only.
okay.
Repairs are operating.
Operating, okay.
So there's just very specific uses, but they're not going to take this back.
Okay.
But this
Because-
said roads and streets, capital.
Yes,
So it doesn't go to roads and streets?
it's roads and streets capital. It's not for repair,
So if you pave the road, you can't use it?
depending on how deep you go when you're repaving.
Okay.
There's, I've talked to the auditors about this. It's kind of how much are you repaving?
Okay.
How deep are you going?
So if we repave a road, we could use it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, got it,
Yes, if we can consider it capital
got it.
and not just patching.
Okay. I think we ought to spend it all, but that's okay.
Well, and we can, it's just what Chad budgeted,
Right.
okay?
Got it.
So, you know, things could be added in where you're gonna spend it.
But this is also part of if we come up with something in the middle of the year, some equipment breaks down or something, we got to get something new for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
This is where basically we have a buffer
Yes.
to go get that.
Absolutely. And you'll see what he has, you know, detailed out for his capital items. You know, roads, it was once said, a 1 mile road is almost $600,000.
Right.
So 63,000 doesn't go very far for a road. It helps.
852 feet.
I'm sorry, what?
No, just being.
What, 2 feet?
No, 852 feet, yeah.
No, what I'm thinking is, all right, we got the $1 million sitting there for Granada. And if we go over, we could take this money and use it for that. See, that's really, I'm trying to catch up with you on what's repaired, what's paid and rest.
Absolutely.
So like I say, we got roughly $1 million and say we get in the project, we need another 50,000 to do another intersection or something. Well, here's $65,000 we could use for that. Or like you're saying, Tim, the truck breaks down and we gotta get a new truck. Well, there's your money. I got it. I'm following.
And next meeting, I will produce a reserve schedule, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
No, that's fine.
Okay, next page. 1 cent local sales surtax, we're at the very top. This is the money that is supposed to sunset December of 2024. And there's been discussion with Marion County if they're going to put this before the voters again. And that's going to be discussed, I'm sorry, I don't know which Marion County workshop, but the other municipalities are asking the same thing. Are you going to put this before the voters? So they're going to have a project list that's going to be brought before them, and they bring in all the municipalities into that discussion. This money can only be used for roads and streets, police department, or fire rescue. When I say fire rescue, no, we don't provide that service, but we still have a building that we own, that this money can be used for, to put a new roof on.
Right.
To redo plumbing, anything associated with the building.
Jan, the end date says 12/31/2025. Is it a typo?
Yes, no, I'm sorry, it is 2025.
Okay, gotcha.
I looked at the ordinance.
Okay, cool.
Because I thought it was 2024.
Right, that's what I've been thinking also. Okay.
The next item, the franchise fees from Duke Energy on electricity can be used for any general purpose. The electricity utility taxes, I'm on the next line, the $290,000 can be used for any general purpose. Communication service tax, that's a tax you pay on your DirecTV bill, your cell phone bill. That can be used for any general purpose. And the utility taxes on propane or liquefied petroleum is what our ordinance is. If somebody was using oil, purchasing and selling oil in the city, we would get, we would collect a tax on it. But we only have propane, that can be used for any general purpose. I do give you all a reconciliation of, and I think I have included it, at least initially in this summary packet, of basically what revenue sources support the departments. Then of course, that will need to be fine-tuned as we go along. So this really covers your taxes. Those are all the taxes, pretty much.
Dan, where does that utility tax come from?
Propane sales, I believe it's 10%.
The utility tax?
On propane.
No, the
There's one for electricity.
31410.
Oh, that's Duke Energy.
Well, what is 31310?
That's a franchise fee because Duke Energy is the sole provider of electricity in the city, and they basically are paying to be that sole provider in the city and have their poles and wires here.
Okay.
They give us a franchise fee. It's been negotiated.
That's the franchise fee, and then the tax on the electricity is the second one, right?
It's, yes, and that,
Okay.
as explained in detail, is 10% of the monthly gross receipts charged. So their sales, of their monthly total sales, we get 10% of that.
Okay.
Moving on to the next category, and this, just so you know, this whole budget is laid out according to how the Auditor General has told us we need to lay out our budget. And it's very hard to compare Dunnellon's franchise fees to Marion County's because they could have different accounting numbers, but it's still, they're still going to be reporting it the same way we do.
The same format.
It's going to be a different form.
Oh,
Because anybody can kind of present their budget whichever way they want to.
oh, okay.
As long as bottom line, by the end of the year, they report it according to the Auditor General's requirements.
Oh, okay.
Ours is laid out very simply.
Okay.
We don't have as much as a county does. And, you know, with all their constitutional departments and officers.
Jan, without doing the math, on page 3, is that a sum of everything we just went through?
Yes.
Thank you.
Each of these categories will have a total at the bottom. The next category is revenue licenses and permits. Here is a combination of your business tax receipts, which are your first two lines, and the rest are all revenues that come out of community development. So your first two lines, your professional and occupational license and the penalty, generally go to support your non-revenue generating departments. This is, because it's in the clerk's department, it's not used to support community development activities. Building inspectors should be kind of self-supporting, permit fees, things like that. Whereas our business tax receipts, we're very limited to what we can increase it to. Years ago, it wasn't planned, it wasn't thoughtfully planned out because Walmart is paying the same thing as a hair salon. And you can see our revenue really isn't all that much from all the businesses.
Right.
With as many as we've got, $32,000 with Walmart, with the hotels, it's not very much, but we can't do anything about it. We can only increase it every other year, and I think it, Mandy, is it like 5%,
What is that?
your business taxes?
Yes.
Yes, so we can only increase it 5% every other year, which we do.
Is the rate for the BTR right now 65 bucks?
I want to say yes, but I'd have to look it up. The rest of the revenues are really primarily to support your building inspecting department. Your building permits. Now, I estimated these, and I tell you how I came up with it. I estimated it based on a 2-year average. Maybe less will come in next year, maybe more. If Kelly knows of some huge development that maybe is going to give us a lot of money, you know, I think another year from now, she'll have more experience with it, and I'll look to her to estimate these revenues. But for the new department heads, I tried to take it on myself and use some kind of logic with guesstimating what we're doing. Again, it's very conservative. We've been very lucky, and even the auditors have commented on how well the budget is adopted and managed because we are conservative. And if we get any windfalls, it just goes in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can spend it, you know, if there's a project that comes up. And we've done Tim's project list.
Jan, just a quick question. So with all the quantities listed as one, and not really having a sure number of how many commercial places, we have a guesstimate, well, just got that today. Shouldn't we be reflecting quantities and unit costs to actually be able to figure?
This report is a canned report. The only way I can get the detail to print
Is if we do it like that?
is if this is how it comes out. I can't give you quantities.
Understood.
So again, being a canned report. But this estimate is based on, now, this is prior to Loretta doing her July business tax billings. So I based this on what was in the system currently. She'll give me a better number when she generates her new invoices
Okay.
from July 1st.
So when, this doesn't reflect July's,
No, it reflects what we currently have, what has currently been paid for
Oh.
business licenses.
so this isn't a whole year.
No, it is. It's based on a whole year. This is based on, actually, no, I take that back, it is not, because these licenses, for the most part, are due by, I believe, December.
Okay, they go out in July and they're doing December.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking, yeah,
So,
something like that.
They're due October.
well, they're due October, but if they're paid between October and December, there's a penalty assessed.
Yes.
So
And the
Okay.
later it is, the more the penalty.
the more it
Right.
is,
Yeah.
which is under a separate line item, you can see that's the next one.
Right.
Account for the penalty separately. So when I estimated this, for the most part, aside from new businesses coming in, this should be about what the revenue is going to be anticipated.
And
It's
that,
usually fairly close.
and that includes the 5% increase?
Oh, it's the price we are today.
Okay, so that
And
after,
we increased it, was it last year? I think it was last year.
I believe so.
Yeah, it was last year, so we can't increase it until 2025.
oh, I thought you said yearly. Okay, I misunderstood you.
Every other year.
I'm with you, gotcha.
So this 32,000 probably won't change that much,
Okay.
unless there's something going in that I don't know about.
I just have to, sorry. So Chad has a list he just obtained of the number of commercial properties in the city. Doing the math against the $65 per business tax receipts does not even come close to the 32,000.
And they haven't paid. When you say doesn't.
No, it's much lower.
This is what's in our system.
Okay. I think we should probably
It's what Loretta bills out and what is paid.
take this. Okay.
So I'm not sure really what you're comparing, but we do have insurance companies that do business here. I don't believe they have to have a brick and mortar.
They don't.
They just
But
have
they
to do
still pay
business.
tax receipts.
There are
that-
quite a few insurance companies that pay business tax that don't have brick and mortar in the
So
city.
that, I think, is probably the
That's
difference.
probably the majority.
So I'm just curious, is there like a program or what's the system by which we keep track of that?
There is a business license module within our financial system.
Okay, and I imagine that has like printouts that can provide you data?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
That's how Loretta knows Goodwill, it'll generate a business tax. I guess it's an invoice.
okay,
It's all, it's like a billing system.
great,
That's
thanks.
exactly what it is. It's a billing system.
Thank you, just learning.
Yeah.
And then a new software, yeah.
Maybe a commercial property, but you may have 10 businesses in there.
So anyway, the rest of these revenues, your building permits, your permit administrative charge, zoning and other permits, your permit penalty, tree permits, plan review, and your animal licenses, they all offset your building inspector report for the most part. Because your building inspection department, which is permitting, should pay for itself. If it doesn't, we need to increase fees,
Right.
because that means other general revenues are supporting that department.
Mhm.
Right.
So it's one way to kind of monitor, even if our fees may be on the high end, and it's not enough to support the expenses, it needs to be raised.
Mhm.
And that's coming to you shortly.
Okay. So these revenues are basically pass-through revenues. They come in, they support everything you just said, so it's not like this money's gonna go to
To help,
operating costs or anything like that. It's basically money that's just spent keeping up with the cost.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. Are there any other questions so far? Okay, the next page, page 6, impact fees. We only have one that we get to keep, we like to keep, and that's for the police department. So when there's permits and new construction, the permittee pays an impact fee. I believe it's $355, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, per construction. So, and we've collected very little so far. Now, this money can only be used for capacity increase to the police department. So if their normal complement of officers is 10, the only way they could spend it on an officer is if they hire an electric. It can be used for the new building, if ever that comes to fruition, because a new building is going to increase capacity. So there are very strict limitations with respect to impact fees. And I'd have to look at the statute, but after a certain amount of time, if we don't use this, it's got to be refunded back to whoever paid it.
At the next,
It's years out.
okay,
It's definitely years out. We've only been doing this, I believe, for 2 years.
gotcha.
So you got a good 10 years.
Okay, could you, for the next workshop, budget workshop, could you just let us know what that date is?
If I can dig it up, I'll
Okay.
show where I saw it.
Okay, gotcha,
I will-
okay.
I will try my best
Cool.
to find out where that is.
And this has only been in place for a couple of years, I understand, if I remember right, okay. So the best we might have, including this year, somewhere around 6,000, 7,000.
Yeah, or maybe even longer.
Okay.
I just know that at some point in time, if it's not spent.
Right, I'm just trying to think of what we had in the bank now, and it's probably only about double this number we're looking at, maybe triple, and not much.
Just about,
Okay.
it's not much. And again, I'm so sorry I don't have the reserve schedule here.
It's okay. Can we use any of this money in the situation that we're in now?
Because you're not increasing your capacity, you're just rebuilding.
You sure about that?
Are you going to hire more than 10 officers?
What sets the basis?
It was set when this fee was adopted.
Oh, so there's, okay, so when this fee was adopted, there's language that says we have this many officers presently.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and all the documents, it was done by a consultant.
Okay.
Because it had to be. Impact fees have to be done so that they are defensible in a court of law. And so we hired a consultant, and I'd have to go back into the records to see who we hired, but it was a real formal process.
I hope we didn't pay more than $3,000.
Remember,
We didn't make any money.
Yeah, I do have a question on the impact fees then.
I'm sorry, what?
I do have a question on the impact fees. So say if somewhere in downtown Dunnellon, say one of the vacant lots, somebody wanted to put say like a small apartment building. Are there impact fees that we could then implement because it's going to put more strains on the water line, so?
No.
Okay. And can we do anything to change our impact fees to cover these things? Because like Mayor Dunn said, the water line is 70 years old under Pennsylvania and you add more people.
This is for police only.
I know, but what I'm saying is, could we then put an ordinance in for future building impact fees so that
No, those are through the county.
they can
County-
only?
The county, if I'm correct, they get the impact fees.
So you have the transportation impact fee,
Which
which
is
is
county.
currently being charged. You also have an educational impact fee, which is currently on hiatus by the county. And then we have the police impact fee.
Which is strictly
Oh.
ours.
Okay, so,
But legally, we could create some other.
Not that I'm aware of. But
So-
I'm not the expert, that would be something that, y'all we could call the consultant and say, what else can we do?
We've looked into the transportation impact fee before, and you can't double tax. If the county's already has a transportation impact fee, the city cannot, then on top of that, establish a transportation impact fee. We have looked into that in the past.
okay, but I was wondering if we could do a capital improvement impact fee if they haven't done it so that,
I don't think there is such a thing.
okay, anyway,
But again, without talking to the consultant,
yeah.
you know, all we can do is ask the question, but I've never heard of such a thing, so.
Yeah.
But just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean it.
No, it was,
doesn't
I'm just
exist.
saying because in Palmetto Bay where I live, they were building massive developments, and that was one of the big complaints, was that they weren't getting enough impact fees because they had to redo the whole system. And we were saying, why does he build a 10-story apartment building and we have to replace all the sewage and upgrade it? So I just wondered if we could look into that.
And see, we're not responsible for the water lines or the sewer lines.
Yeah.
That belongs to FGUA. We have no
Oh, okay.
responsibility for those.
Okay.
So Jan, last thing really quick, this number 3240, you said that the impact fee is,
30, what page do you want?
sorry, 6, it's still about police impact fees.
3240?
3,240?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you said it was about 2 years ago, and the fee itself is $355,
Per permit.
and it's residential or it's anybody?
I believe it's both residential and commercial.
It's everybody, and it's based on square footage for who builds.
Okay, so it's,
It's a fluctuating.
and it's really impacted it's, why is it so low?
We haven't had really new construction, much new construction.
I've already got a list to double check all these fees.
Thanks. Okay, that's it, thanks.
Basically, we could follow this number and understand kind of,
How slow things are.
right, right.
Providing that it's accurate.
I can tell you
Correct.
this year alone, I know that number is incorrect.
Yeah, just from what we've looked at in planning, it
Well, and I'm
suggests,
curious, if this is what's been put towards this revenue.
And this is just police, correct?
That's all we
That's
collect. I don't record any other
I'm
impact
sorry.
fee.
That may be right.
Yeah,
I'm
this
thinking of
is-
the transportation impact fee, which is a lot more, but that
We
goes
don't-
directly to Marion.
We don't,
so-
yeah, see, we don't track anything we don't keep,
Mm-hmm, sure.
for the most part.
Right.
Because we do have some pass-throughs, but things that we're collecting on behalf of Marion County, I'm not tracking that.
Right.
I'm not gonna do their accounting for them.
And we do not take their fees in.
Okay.
They get paid directly to Marion.
And if we took it in, I could see us tracking it, but then turning right around and sending in a check. But-
Can I ask a question? You said whenever this was started, there was like 10 people on the police force.
I believe so.
Okay, the question I have, when all this happened, I learned that we had policemen that were part-time. We had policemen that weren't getting paid. Were they included in the 10?
Probably not.
Okay, that's the reason I'm asking the question.
And I'm assuming, without digging back into the record, I'm assuming it's based on FTE, full-time equivalent.
Okay, that's where I was going with this. I remember when all this got passed, and I remember all the arguments and stuff. Okay, that's all I was just asking is, that number, was it full-time, part-time,
And it may,
non-paid, whatever?
and it may have included part-time. Again, without
Mm-hmm.
digging back in, I don't really want to assume, but typically your studies, they seem to focus on full-time equivalents.
No, I'm sure that's what it should be. I'm just questioning where we end up with full-time versus where we were when this was done a couple of years ago. That's all.
Randy, could you send us a copy of that ordinance? Can you find it?
What's that?
Can you send us a copy?
The ordinance?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I remember that it was only used for police and all that. I remember all this when the discussion was going on. Okay.
Okay, on page 7, the category is intergovernmental revenue. There's a surcharge that is charged on every permit that we get to keep a percentage, and a percentage goes to the state. This is just another category, and this is another revenue source that's used to offset the building inspection department. So it's very small, but it's still something to help offset the cost of that. Moving on to state share revenue. And this is exactly what it says, it's revenue that the state gets the majority of, and we get a little piece of it based on, now I believe I emailed you all this wonderful manual with all revenue sources. And if you haven't saw it, it's a great read. And this just tells you what it can be used for, how it's distributed. It'll sometimes gives you the formula. I remember when I first came here, I tried to work one of these formulas. I gave up. It was that difficult. I don't know what kind of program they used to go through those calculations. But, so state shared revenue is, like I said, exactly what it says. It's revenue that the state shares with us, a piece of. These are based on their estimates. The first one is just generically called state revenue sharing. It can be used for any general purpose. The next one,
And where does that come from? I mean, I know the state, but what is it about?
you know.
No, that's okay.
I was going to write down the definition.
That's okay. I can look it up. I got the same information.
Head, in fact, I did mark it. It's a percent of sales and use tax collections and net collections from the municipal fuel tax. That's exactly what it is, and it's on page 77.
Page 77, thank you.
And for state revenue sharing, it's the two pieces. It's this first line and the second line that starts out SRS for state revenue sharing, the eighth cent motor fuel tax. That's for roads and streets. So when we get this money in monthly, we have to split it between general use and roads and streets. The next item, mobile home licenses.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Okay, so we've got the 69K for state revenue sharing, the 33512. Then we got another 17K for the 8 cent motor fuel tax.
roads and streets.
Okay, so only roads and streets can use the 17K.
Yes,
The 69 can be spent anywhere?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is mobile home licenses. That is for any general purpose. Alcoholic beverage licenses, you would think that these funds would be fairly consistent each year, but they're not. And that's any general use. The 1/2 cent sales tax, $174,000 is general use. Motor fuel tax rebate. The city's gasoline use for their fleet and equipment, we get a rebate of the state sales tax. That's what this line item represents. That's roads and streets.
You have just one question, just when you say mobile home license, is that like a manufactured home? Do they have to pay that license every year?
As long as they don't make it a part of their real property, yes. It's on wheels. A manufactured home is delivered on wheels, is considered a motor vehicle.
So if I was to buy one, I would have to pay a tax on it every year?
Yes, you would, unless you own the land that it's sitting on and you incorporate that into your real property. Then it becomes part of your property taxes.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay,
And for example, a mobile home park,
okay,
they only rent their lot.
right,
So that home that's sitting on it has to be tagged every year,
I see,
not the car.
I understand. Thank
Now,
you.
now maybe with a mobile home, you can get multiple years.
Yeah,
I know you can with a car, you can do it 2 years.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure.
okay, I just want to clarify, thank you.
You wouldn't think it would be like a vehicle because the wheels are removed once that home
Right,
is
but-
set. Yeah, it's because it can be just lifted up and moved.
No, I understand, it's like I say, wow, I pay a tax to live in my house every year, but I do, I pay property tax.
So that completes the state revenue sharing, which we get $276,000, estimated $805 for next year. And these are the estimates I'm waiting on. Most of them I'm waiting on from the state. And I'm hoping they really come in a lot more than what I've anticipated. The next page, on page 10, is titled Local Grants. This grant is through our insurer. We can request reimbursement up to a certain amount for safety items such as a bulletproof vest, or which goes against our work comp insurance, or if, say, we repair a sidewalk, we can request 50% reimbursement. That would go against our property insurance liability. And we do have a threshold of about $3,000 for both items combined. We just haven't done a lot, that's why this estimate is low. If we repair more sidewalks, next year, then we'll get more revenue from this source. That is the only grant that is actually budgeted. $1 million that is for roads. That is grant revenue, but accounting-wise, I don't record it as revenue until we actually spent the money. So we'll see that change throughout next year as that project continues. And we don't budget for grants that are not known.
You tweaked me when you said if we repair more sidewalks, we'd receive more.
Yes.
How,
Because then I would submit those expenses into our insurer. And as long as we haven't gone above the threshold of,
the 3K?
I think it's $1,500 each.
Okay,
15 for the work comp side and $1,500 for the property liability side.
okay.
And say we spend $200 repairing a sidewalk. I would submit that and they would reimburse us on the property liability side $100 for that expense.
Okay, are we tracking that?
Oh, I track it. When we get receipts, now Chad, I haven't discussed this with Chad, any safety equipment, and I believe Matt knows to do this, identifying the receipt that's safety related, such as goggles or steel-toed boots, things like that. Sidewalks, I'm going to look at the receipt and I'm going to see it's a sidewalk repair. So even if it's overlooked on Chad's side, I'll catch it on mine.
Right, man-hour time.
No, this is actual cost, not man hours.
Okay,
This is materials.
okay. If we rented equipment,
That would come into play because I would submit that as well.
okay, gotcha. Okay, so you capturing that, Chad? Thank you, sir.
And Chad, anything you can identify for us on the receipt would be great. But I've been pretty good at catching, but we really haven't spent that much.
Right, we have a few sidewalks out there that are in need of repair. We're just not able to get at them right now. So this is a good time to bring this up.
That'll be perfect, so hopefully we'll get more than $1,300 in revenue.
Right, yeah. If we could max it out, that'd be,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of sidewalks around town that, man, they're bad.
yeah, we got quite a few of them marked. We just haven't had a chance to get out there and do anything with them.
I see them over in the historic district because that's where I've been spending a lot of time. And they are like cracked and broken. People driving cars over them and things like that. Okay.
Okay, so moving on, charges for services. The first item is copying and record search. We charge a fee, for staff time and material. And this is just based on what's projected for this year. It's a guesstimate. We never know. Some years we make a killing because everybody's requesting all these documents. You also have under this category, you've got your cemetery open and close, some very small revenue associated with that, and deed preparation. We allow somebody to purchase a niche or a plot and pay on time. That's it for charges and services, about $7,500 is estimated for next year. The next page is under public safety, and it's other public safety charges. This is strictly a pass-through revenue. This is, we charge a permit holder for a building safety inspection, fire safety inspection through Marion County. Then we send that on to Marion County. So this does not benefit the city, other than the inspection being performed, but financially it doesn't. But it does offset, our permit fees, part of the permit fee. If we had to provide it, then we could, and had somebody to do fire safety inspections on staff, then we could keep it. The next item, category is sanitation revenue, waste management, your trash pickup. This is, the first line is strictly pass-through. Waste management bills us, and we pay based on, this is for residential only. We don't handle commercial. The commercial customers have to contract with waste management on their own. But the residential customers are billed on their water bill. FGUA does do that on our behalf because a bill has to go out. We don't have the resources to issue bills. So they do it on the water bill, which is how it always was when we had it. And the cost is going up next year by about 4.5% to $18.89 a month. And that equates to about $1.06 increase per month. That is contractually driven by waste management. It's based on CPI, not just your straight CPI, but this is the garbage and trash CPI. And they gave me all the documents to support it. And I will be producing a notice that will let the commercial customers know, as well as residential, what their price differences are, that I'll be showing to you.
Okay, so this is the first line item, the 1889 is going to go up approximately,
It's going to 1889.
it's going to, gotcha.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
17.
New rate. That's cool, I got it, so
Something.
sure.
Seems like I got something in my bill the other day that told me this was going up, my personal bill. I mean, I've already gotten it from the water company, I was gonna say. I saw it.
I don't see how I haven't.
Well,
No,
somehow I saw this, and I'm sure it was when I paid the bill.
I would love to see that notice.
Probably threw mine away. I paid the bill away. But this trash collection is going up next year. It just said it was going like $1 or something. I thought, well, big deal.
How would they know that?
I don't
I
know.
haven't notified them.
The question I have, and I would want to make sure of this, it says this contract waste management expires in '24.
Yes.
I want it to go out for competitive bids.
You do or you don't?
Yes, ma'am. Because I have a commercial customer that tried to change, and we were told because of waste management agreement, they couldn't go anywhere else.
No, and they couldn't because.
And they found, just talking to them, their bill would be cut in half. They were pretty upset. This is a business.
Okay.
So I think we,
Well,
for residents, it may be as good, but what this customer told me was, man, they were shocked when they found out what the guy would charge. Now, this is one of them green dumpster things, okay? He picked it up, and it was about half what they're paying right now. So I think we ought to just check them to make sure, the residents and the dumpsters we're getting a good deal. Because apparently, this dumpster, he was paying a lot more than what he could pay.
Sure.
So I think we do need to check that.
Okay.
Jan, can we talk about the fire contract fees? Because I have 4,500 that has been coming out of the building inspector budget for Marion County Fire Rescue. Then Chad, in one of his line items, he's got $4,000 coming out for fire rescue services. The fire inspection fees and services. that
I
we just
need to
discussed.
know pages.
Okay.
Page 12
Page 12 for Chad.
for Chad, in your detailed budget. Page 12.
So this sounds like we're paying our inspections.
Hold on,
So are they doing?
Well, we're paying it. Okay, we have to pay for the inspection
Right.
as well as collect for it.
No, so
How-
customers, when they need a fire inspection, they come in, they pay the fee,
Right?
and it's done.
We-
Marion County
And we
comes
get,
out.
and we get a bill from Marion
No.
County.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Because we already took the money in.
So it's on the revenue and expense side. So where, Chad, where in your budget do you see that? Is that in 01541?
01342.
That's revenue. That's not your budget, that's revenue. That's money coming in. We're on the revenue side of this discussion. That's money that you're taking in for those fire inspections.
Even though Public Works does not take money in.
It's not public works.
It's
It all,
public,
It's called it's a public safety charge.
okay, that's what we
It's
call it.
not public works. We're not talking expenses. We're only looking at revenues, money we take in.
yeah, the reason they're like that, this whole fire thing's a bit of a hot button. We gotta figure out a lot of stuff
Okay.
around the whole fire inspection thing. That's why
Okay.
they're bringing this up.
Yeah,
You're probably
no
not,
worries. I was just going, wait a minute, did I
right,
get the case on that?
yeah. We got a lot of figuring out what's going in, what's coming out, who's doing what with the fire inspections.
Okay,
So
well,
that's why the reaction to the
you
money.
do have a contract with Marion County.
Right, right,
Okay.
yeah, and we understand all that, but something's just not quite working out.
Oh, okay.
Now, when you say we have a contract with Marion County, you mean to fire service in general or just for the inspection?
Both.
Because I've got a call in to the fire supervisor of Marion County to try to clarify that and find out how it's going to work for their short-term rentals.
Okay.
So I just wanted to be clear, what are we paying for? Are we paying for,
We'd have to get the contract and
Yeah.
read it.
Mandy sent that contract out not too long ago.
oh,
Yeah, it's very generic. It just says under the fire prevention section that they will provide fire prevention services and inspection services. But it doesn't particularly lay out specifically what inspection services those are.
then I will know to talk to him. So would I be remiss then if I asked him how much they are going to charge us for the inspections in Dunnellon when they come in to do businesses?
$40.
What?
$40.
$40? Okay.
Currently, it's $40.
Okay.
And $40.
So do we keep that $40 or does that go to Marion County
Goes back.
on top of what we pay them to?
It's just a pass-through. We don't even see that, the percentage of that.
All right. Okay.
And that's part of what we're trying to figure out here, Rex, is, in the contract, it says we're paying so much for fire inspections, but then we're paying them
It
out.
says that they will provide them. It doesn't say anything about the contract, how much
Oh.
it costs. It just says that they will provide fire inspection services.
Okay, gosh, I gotta look up something, because I seen a number, like 3,000 or something like that, so I gotta get on top of this, the same as Kelly and Chad do. As soon as we get time.
In your spare time.
Right.
Okay, so we're back to sanitation. The first amount is strictly, we take it in from the customer, we send it right to waste management. Of course, based on what we collect, you know, how many customers are billed. We don't pay any more than what FGUA actually tells us. Then there's a sanitation admin charge of $4.50 per customer. That's for my time to handle issues as well as Chad's, because sanitation is one of his departments. And then Waste Management pays us a franchise fee, just like Duke Energy, and it's estimated to be about $61,000. So if we're going to go out for RFP, we need to continue with a franchise fee. If we're going to give one company
Right.
the privilege of servicing all of Denell.
I mean, this, if I'm reading this stuff here, it sounds like they pick up 820 customers.
That, it fluctuates a little bit because
Right.
the Northerners would be on,
Yeah.
not 820.
Okay.
So the admin fee and the sanitation franchise fee
Mhm.
for general use.
Okay. Right.
Okay, moving along. The next item is, on page 14, is transportation. This is a contract with DOT. They reimburse the city a certain percentage amount to cover the highway safety lighting on Highway 41 and maintenance of it, electricity, things like that. And they set the fees, and I want to say it's kind of like free money, because I'm not so sure we do any maintenance. I think we used to, but I'm not so sure we do anymore. And they increase it about 6% each year. It's just a standard contract. When they put in more lights, we get more. They put in 3 more lights recently.
Do we pay the electric bill for those?
I don't think so.
Uh,
I'm not sure. I'd really have to look at the bill. But if we don't, I'm not sure who is, so.
Okay.
We probably are.
You send me that list, I can probably get it off of that.
I thought you had a list of electricity.
Yeah, you sent me that list, that's why I said I can look at that and get that answered. Okay.
The next item is your culture and recreation, which is City Beach. It's early in the season. I based the revenue, the $8,000 revenue on a 3-year average. We don't charge very much. We only charge $250 per person. 2.
2. Yeah.
It doesn't cover the City Beach costs.
Nope. That's okay.
And it's up to you all if you want to increase it or leave it the same. That's something we can discuss at a later date.
Mm-hmm.
On page 16, we get into police revenues. Fines and forfeitures, all these revenues on page 16 support the police department. It's based on tickets. You have a $50 ticket. Statutorily, a certain percentage goes to the category of fines and forfeitures, which supports police operations. A percentage of that ticket goes to a category called automation, like for computers. So there's a separate reserve for automation for police. It also goes to offset their IT costs. So typically these have been used in the budget each year.
Do that last part again? Typically,
They're used.
okay.
Because they have IT related costs. So this little bit, this $1,300 for automation, we use it to offset that IT cost. Then a certain percentage of that ticket goes toward their education, seminars, any type of law enforcement education that money is used for, and they do budget for seminars. So again, these have been absorbed into the current budget. Nothing is at this point extra. I do an analysis at the end of the year, like if they don't go anywhere for a seminar, then this $412, I would put into their reserve to be used in the future. But that's something that just takes place at the end of the year.
Okay.
This last item is a new revenue source for the police department. Over the past couple of years, the state just started sending us money. These are based on records requests for accident reports by insurance companies, and we get a portion of the fee. And again, it goes to support the police department.
Can I ask a question here? And Chief, maybe you can help me with this. I know I asked Michael Quaid about this a few years ago. That we get $50 a speeding ticket. Is that, there's a reason for that? And the reason I'm asking, I got a ticket in Georgia running through a town, and it was $280.
It's not a speeding ticket, it's a parking ticket. A parking ticket is $50.
Okay?
A speeding ticket is a statutory calculation.
Correct. Right.
So are these just parking tickets, or are these?
No, these are all
All tickets. Okay. So what do we charge for a speeding ticket?
It is based on
Is it a percentage of how fast you're
there's
going?
a scale. Is it a moving violation? Is it 167.50? Is it a non-moving violation? Is it 111?
Okay.
So, tail light, speeding, careless driving.
Because what I got out of Mike was it's $50, and I thought, that doesn't seem right.
So, if you
So
actually.
$50 is parking.
That's
Ordinance violation.
Right.
But a Florida state statute citation, if you could get a hold of the breakdown of that citation,
Right.
that's exactly what we're doing now. $5 that citation went here, $2 that citation went there, 30 cents went here, $10 went there, and then everybody got a bit and piece of that citation.
It goes to a lot of different pots.
No, I get all that. I'm just wanting to know how much we're charging for speeding tickets.
That's set by the state.
Okay, that's done by the state. Okay,
I'm sure
good.
if you're going down 41, 100 miles an hour. I bet you're.
I'm telling you what,
over
we
200.
have got to do something about the speed, and I'm just being blunt. I mean, I get run over going off Pennsylvania, heading that William Street to go to Publix, go to Walmart, and I go 35 miles an hour, and people are flying by me. And I just think, I know, y'all don't got anybody out there, but when we get people out there, I won't stop. This is insane, how fast these people drive. And I think it's because they know they're not gonna get a speed ticket. But I think if we do that, not that I want this to be a revenue source, I just want to slow down. Okay, so that's the reason this came up.
Okay, we're almost done with revenues.
Got it.
We're really on the last section of miscellaneous. It's where we have revenues that aren't classified elsewhere. First item is miscellaneous. We get money come in for, that'll reimburse us for something. I wish I had a more concrete example. That isn't really applicable to anything, so we stick it in here. Insurance reimbursements. You know, we put in an insurance claim, you get that money, it goes into this category. So just about anything can go through this revenue source, and it's a good revenue source. As you can see, I've estimated $40,000. The next two items are strictly pass-through when we have a permittee who, Andrew has to get involved in looking at, you know, what they're doing as far as new construction, or there's site plan reviews, things like that. That's where this revenue comes in. We're getting reimbursed for other expenses.
I would just like to say, the only time we get reimbursed for legal expense or pass through legal expenses is for site plan reviews.
Sure.
We do contact the attorney on open matters that are not pertaining to a specific permit or anything.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And it
Is-
would
is-
not just be site plan, it would be application for a rezone or any kind of development or rezone application that involves a pass-through. When the attorney gets involved, the applicant has to reimburse the city for those charges.
That's what I was just fixing to say. Okay, we get charged for legal, and this should be where we get reimbursed by the person asking the question or rezoning or whatever. This is where it comes in.
Yes.
I got it. Okay, cool.
And then the next item is interest on our deposits. I've estimated $84,000 for next year. Hopefully it'll be more. The next item is your rents and royalties, your parking lot, your parking space rents, optical tel, and the art room. Now, for the parking lot, it was easy enough to estimate. I used 5% because that's just what was discussed or mentioned at the meeting for the art group. So I kind of used that for optical tel. That'll get fine-tuned the more you discuss what their rent is actually going to be.
Right.
On the next page, we've got our cemetery lots and crypts. That's where, you know, that's the cost of the actual niche or plot. The second line item, the cemetery, that RES stands for reserve. So 40% of every sale goes into a cemetery reserve. Right away, it's every month. We take that money, we put it into the reserve. And then at the end of the year, we look at, okay, what are all our cemetery revenues? And we discussed a couple of them earlier. Versus Chad's cemetery expenses. If revenues were greater than expense, oh, well, we get to increase the reserve a little bit. If it's less, then I pull from reserve. And in this budget, I have pulled from reserve because I'm not estimating that sales are going to outpace the expense. I could, but it's a guess. So I'm basing it on, I believe, an average of a couple of years. And at this point in time, as of May, cemetery was only, I would only need to pull from reserve about $1,500. So we still have more time, more sales can come. The reserve is shrinking, it moves up and down.
All right. My question was going to be, do you know how much we have in reserve now?
I Again, I didn't.
Oh, God, that's
reserve
okay.
schedule,
I can,
so I want to say by the end of the year, I estimated about 88,000.
Okay,
I'd have to take a look and see
Okay.
what we've got.
gotcha, thanks.
The
But
question,
I do pay attention to that.
question I got about that is, I think in some discussions I've had with Jack Rowland and looking at some information that I got from Andy, been a while ago, we probably ought to revisit how much we charge for these things. It just seems like it's been, I don't remember, it's been so long since I looked at this stuff, but it's been quite a few years since we've adjusted it. And I don't know how much we need to adjust it, but I looked at the numbers, the other thing that seemed kind of strange, it was, all the numbers were rounded to the nearest penny. That just seemed nuts. I mean, instead of having it like $1,800 or something, it was $1,816.38. That's what we were charging for something. And I thought, this is crazy. Why don't we just say $1,900? So anyway, Jack and I kind of went back and forth on that, but that's something, I think the budget's fine, so don't worry about it right this second. But I do think at some point, we've got to look at this, especially if it's been 10, 15 years since we adjusted these fees, to say, is this still a reasonable amount? And if it is or isn't, that's fine. If it isn't, we need to adjust them. And when we adjust them this time, let's don't take it to the nearest penny. I was just shocked when I was looking at this stuff. But anyway, it's something to think about. But I think this is fine.
I added it to it.
Oh, I know.
The last category are your transfers in from reserve. And I've detailed out exactly what it's going to be used for, and this is really applicable to the expenses that we're going to talk about the next meeting. But we have just a reserve called designated capital replacement used for general fund, and I tell you exactly what I'm taking from it. I'm concerned about that reserve with all these expenses, but we'll go over that, because that's going to take that reserve down to, by the end of next year, just about $4,000. That reserve doesn't grow very much, because the only way that reserve is funded, two ways. I'm required to transfer money in based on 10% of depreciation expense that was in the office. So it's about $16,000 a year that I have to take and move into that reserve from unrestricted. It's a line item transfer, but it's a way to keep building up that reserve. We also have a source coming from FGUA. When we had the utility, we took over Rio Vista's decommissioned wastewater treatment plant and brought them into our system. We adopted a fee for those residents that were on sewer at the time to pay back the city's cost. And we are getting half of that. That was what was negotiated with FGUA. I believe it's only for 10 years. So it's going to stop, and that's about $10,000 a year. So that reserve will be increasing about $25,000, $26,000 a year. And coming out of that reserve, we have new, it's called enterprise reporting software for finance and community development, code enforcement, and permitting. I've estimated that to be about $85,000 for implementation and training. What the goal of that is to save $20,000 to $30,000 a year going forward on annual support costs. Because right now, for our financial software, we pay $45,000 a year for support. And that estimate is based on a couple of proposals we received this year. So we're going to go out for RFP, and we're going to look for new software and try and save the cities to get what Kelly needs to be able to handle.
So we'll be presented with that at a later date?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll present you the RFP. Then when the proposals come in, we'll rank them, we'll review them, and you all will get a chance to look at that. Absolutely.
And that'll be sometime during this budget planning season.
Yes.
Cool, okay.
Well, it'll start actually October 1. We don't have money in this year's budget to do this.
Right, no, what I'm asking is, though, the presentation and all that, and the decision made on that will happen while we're in the middle of this.
No, sir. No, we wouldn't be going out for RFP till October 1.
Okay.
Why couldn't we do it before that?
It's on the budget to do that.
It doesn't cost anything.
Sure does for advertising. It's still, with what's been discussed, you don't want to do anything outside the budget, so the plan was to have it ready to go out October 1.
Okay, where I'm at with that is everything is discussed, approved, and then those items go into the whole budget planning process,
Which they're in.
but we're putting something in the budget that hasn't been approved. Like if Chad wants to add something to his budget for the 23-24 budget year, same with the police, they need to be in here now or by July. All right, and anything they want needs to have been presented and approved before it goes into the budget.
Okay, but we have talked through council about new software. And it was my understanding that you all wanted us to go forward with this. The cloud permit software that was purchased and failed. So the discussion has been to bring this all under one umbrella, one software, where there's no manual process involved for us to record Kelly's revenues like with cloud permits. It was workable, but it wasn't a good plan because that put more work on finance to record journal entries.
No, I'm with you on all that,
Okay.
but I don't recall the meeting where we've gotten all the details on everything and said
What kind of details are you?
that it's going to cost this. At this point here, definitely want assurance that we're not buying another white elephant based on what happened.
No. What we have to do is, we have to prepare a proposal. This is what the city is looking for in software.
Right.
We put that out there. We advertise it, which is estimated about $500 to advertise the entire package that the software providers will receive and prepare their proposals from. We will then open those proposals publicly if we have to. Take 2 minutes, we make a list. Then staff looks and reviews those proposals and determines what's needed and what's best. That's presented to council.
Right, and see, my thought process is that all needs to be done prior to approving a line item going into the budget.
That may not happen in this short amount of time since it's already almost July.
Okay, and that's what bothers me about,
Well, that's
that's
why
one of the things that bothers me about our budget process. It's always because we're short on time that we're not, that we do it this way. And then everything,
I thought it needed to be in the budget first, before we could even start.
say that again?
I thought it needed to be in the budget first, before we could even start.
I'm saying the opposite. We've been in too much trouble doing it that way. And that's why I've been adamant with everybody, okay, to look, anybody, this includes the public, we got a lot of people in the public that find things, want stuff done.
Right?
I'm telling everybody, if it's not in by July, okay, it's not going in this budget. I'll be a no vote.
Well, there's been a big misunderstanding with your thoughts on what should be in the budget before we even do it. Because to me, I don't have $500 to spend on advertising.
But we have $85,000 to throw in a budget that may,
It's capital money. It's capital money. Hopefully it's enough based on two proposals that we already received.
I just don't see that being a wise way of doing business.
Okay, so what you're saying is, I need to get a proposal, an RFP put together as quickly as I possibly can, advertise it, and where am I gonna get the $500 from for the advertising? I'm asking.
Right, here's what I'm saying. Everybody needs to get on board, okay, and be a year out be a year prior to whatever they want to do. That's how every business, every successful business does it. Nobody comes in and says, let's put this in the budget, okay, that they haven't ferreted it out, been approved, et cetera.
We can push this out a year if that's council's
Oh.
desire. We can wait a year. I've already got the munis costs in the budget. One of the issues is I'm planning on retiring. And it's been said to me that I'm really needed to help determine what software we should have. So to push it out a year, I understand what you're saying. I'm not so sure that's the wisest thing, because I may or may not be available.
Okay.
I'm not going to abandon the city. I've already made that commitment. My plan isn't absolutely in stone. It's just a plan.
Right, I'm with you, but we have to start acting like a business. We can't.
But I misunderstood because, and apparently I'm not the only one that misunderstood, your direction, that it should be in the budget. That's why we put it in the budget. It's like, it's not this year's budget. I can't move forward with it because it's not in this budget. So we put it in this year's budget to hopefully get it accomplished.
So we approve it first. All the homework, all the legwork is done prior to that, okay? And then it goes into the next year's budget.
Okay, well, I just need direction. So you want us to go out for RFPs, so I'm gonna ask, where do I get the $500 for the ad? Okay, because it's not in my budget, and we gotta advertise. But we can try and get it out. I don't know if it's gonna give enough time, because normally it's 30, it gives them 30 days to respond. So now we're into closer to the end of July, and we have to take the time to review and rank and get it before council, maybe by September, and then we're into our public hearings.
Right, and I'm with you, and that's the do loop we need to get out of. Now, I'm not saying, not gonna do anything to hurt the city if we need this, definitely, we'll move forward. Okay, but we have to stop doing business like this.
Okay.
You know, we've known, my guess is we wanted this software for quite some time now, like many things, and we need everybody to start looking a year in advance.
And I guess that's where we and others were confused, because we were looking in advance, and it was discussed, well, it's not in the budget this year, we're gonna have to wait until October. That was our discussion.
Okay,
So
and I know this is the first year, so it's gonna
Right,
be some
so-
growing pains,
so
and we'll
it-
accept them.
it was confusing, it was completely misunderstood. That's why it's like, okay, it's not in the budget, we're not gonna,
Okay.
tackle it this year. We're gonna put it in the budget and get the dollars obligated.
Okay, we'll figure this out then.
Not guaranteed to be spent, but we can at least look at it, and go through the motions, get these proposals in, and hopefully get it all implemented by next year. Because if we can get it out in October, give them 30 days. That brings us to November. We decide who is the best fit. It's a committee thing, it's not just me.
Sure.
And we can get it up and running before the end of next year. And get Munis out of the picture, reduce that cost right away. And
I'm with you, not to cut you short, I just don't want to belabor the meeting. I got you, I think you got me, and I'm not looking to step on this. Again, we know there's going to be growing pains, trying to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And I know I said I'll be a no vote, but I promise you I won't do anything that's going to hurt the city if it really is needed to be done.
Well, I mean, it has been talked about.
Okay,
It is needed, Munis is not satisfactory for Kelly.
right,
And $45,000 a year for software, that's ridiculous. I was told by Tyler Technologies that if we wanted Munis today, they would not be allowed to sell it to us because it's not for a small municipality.
gotcha, okay,
We never should have gotten it here.
okay,
And we've been using it since 1998.
gotcha,
So
okay.
can I leave it in the budget?
I'm good, yeah, don't change anything, don't change anything.
Okay, so October 1 is when I would proceed, or do I start now? I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused with what I'm supposed to do with an RFP.
I don't think it's too early to go ahead and start it. I don't think there's any reason why we should not have the document prepared, have it ready to go, have our ads lined up, so that October 1, you can push the button.
That was my plan.
Yes.
All right. Can I say something? I agree with what you're arguing. I mean, that's what we're trying to get to. Totally do. My question is, to do this RFP, we're talking about $500.
That's what I was told at the ad.
Okay, and I'm assuming this 85,000 we put in the budget for the reporting software, whatever, that's an estimate of probably these two folks that you say you've gotten some.
Oh,
That's what I figured. My question is, don't be offended by the way I ask questions, because I sometimes stomp all over my head. Have we made over $500 in interest income this year? More than we thought? Then I think we got the money.
We do, but again.
That's all I'm gonna
It's
say.
not
No,
a
but
question.
I get what you're getting at, because we've got to quit. What I liked about this, at least it was written down here that we were trying to do it, where some of the things I think I've seen in the past, it's like we get to November and all of a sudden somebody realizes we need a truck and it's not even in here. Okay, at least $85.
And that's what I thought we were supposed to do.
Right, no,
With
I get
budgeting,
that. Right.
Get it in the budget,
Mhm.
and then we can move forward, because then we present the plan to council, the full plan.
We'll get
Nothing
there.
but the plan.
I got you. We'll get there.
I want a little clarification. A lot of this is really new to me,
Really?
and this was eye-opening what you're saying. So I just want to see if you could use the same example and apply it for me to the comprehensive plan, because we had recently talked about starting to see what it needed and get the proposal together.
Right.
So, and again, it's something that the city's been a long time without. So I'm wondering if you can lay out a timeline based on what you just said about how that should look.
Basically, the way it needs to look in the future, and I'm gonna say one more time, I know we're just kind of switching gears here, gonna be some learning curve, some learning time, but typically, let's just say use the $500. A year ago, we should have been spending $500 to get these RFQs and everything, all right, with the RFQs. Then by the time we're in this process here, somewhere before we got into this process, we would make the decision, yes, go with this software, go with this software, it's gonna be $85K, it's approved, and then it gets into this planning cycle, into this year's budget. It would be the same for comprehensive plan. It would be the same for a truck. It would,
So we have $90,000 in the budget right now to deal with the comprehensive plan. Should we take it out?
You dial it back to the 500 and work and spend the next year.
well, let's do this. How about everybody think about what the impact's gonna be, okay, and not make a decision this second? Because I go back to, I don't wanna do something that hurts the city that we need to do, based on this learning curve and this learning timeframe, okay? And at the end of the day, what it's gonna come down to is, when we get through all the expenditures, what's the budget look like?
Sure.
You know, and then we may have to, some stuff may not stay above the line, and we'll, as a council and staff, we'll figure that out.
It's like this 90,000 is the same thought process.
Correct.
Yeah.
As the software. So
Correct.
There was confusion, otherwise I would have tackled this a lot sooner.
Right, right. So what we're trying to do is get everybody in the mindset that whatever you need, gotta think about it a year out. Okay, and then we need to get there by the time we get to this day, when the first day of planning for the future, for the next year's budget. And then,
And sometimes though, a price that's given, a quote that's given may only be good for
right, absolutely,
60 days.
absolutely, but we can deal with that.
And right then, that budget's out of question, and the future budget is out of question at that point, because you might be, let's just say you're on hold. And a quote is only good for 60 days.
Right.
The estimate I put in the budget, I increased it because we had these proposals. we didn't realize we'd have to go out for RFP.
Right.
That's why I was able to get a
Gotcha.
couple of proposals. So I increased it because it's several months.
Right, absolutely.
Although I don't think one vendor is going to increase their price.
Right,
Because they really want our business.
exactly.
So-
But that's typical, and, you know, we can figure that out.
Okay, so now at least we have a better understanding that we got to start planning well in advance.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay. But anyway, I
So,
know it's getting
can I ask-
closer to the meeting.
Can I ask one more
Uh-huh.
thing? This, on this reserve schedule, this is, general fund 1360. We've got garage doors, dump trucks, quarter-ton truck, and all this in a mower. I thought we just bought all that stuff.
This is what Chad put in his budget.
Okay,
That you'll see the capital expenses.
I know they're
this
capital, but,
represents.
okay. But the garage doors, what other garage doors are we gonna buy?
There are other garage doors.
Replace 3 of the 6.
Oh, okay, okay, I didn't realize that, okay.
So that's what this, all this is funding, these reserves are funding capital. You know,
Right.
My only concern was that general fund reserve that I told you
Right.
was down to about 4,000.
Right.
And this is expenses, so I'm getting off track here, but Chad has requested $45,000 for playground equipment.
Right,
The only reserve, well, I shouldn't say the only reserve, but that was the reserve I tapped into.
right,
We do have another reserve that I'm trying not to touch,
Right.
but it is for capital. That reserve was $1.8 million.
Right.
So, but we'll talk more about that, but this is the revenue side.
okay.
4,400,000 in revenue at this point in time, and I don't even have all the estimates. So hopefully, y'all have a better understanding of the budget. If not, come see me. We'll sit down one-on-one.
Can I ask one more question? I know in last year's budget, there were a number of things. There was the, way signs, for example, the lights,
CRA.
some other stuff that we killed, okay? And they were in last year's budget, okay? The question I have is, so they weren't spent, okay? At the end of the year, they still aren't spent. And that means we should have money in those. Now, I don't know which of those would have been capital versus ordinary.
It's all CRA money.
Well, that's all CRA money. So that goes straight into CRA.
Stays in CRA.
Okay.
Doesn't get spent.
You can end the discussion. I got it now. I thought it was in this budget. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Okay, well, that wraps this up. You know, we're going to spare for the next meeting.
Thank you very much, and that was an awesome presentation. I mean, thank you so much.
I'm glad, everybody see, I don't see deer in the headlights.
Right.
No, I mean,
So-
I think personally, getting this early, I did things like underline, capital underline, this is an average of 2 years, this is an average of 3 years. I was doing that when I was reviewing this, so I kind of got an idea of where we were coming up with these numbers, because I know they're all estimates, so how do we get them? And I got real comfortable with how you put this
And
together.
I've even changed my methodology because it's so early.
That's
You know, it's
fine.
like, I'm not gonna go out 3 years because, and some of my estimates took it out to 2020 when that was a pandemic.
Right.
So that's why you see more 2-year averages than 3, because that was totally unusual and I didn't want to include it.
Right.
Cemetery revenue went through the roof that year. And I was not going to include that in the
Wow,
average.
exactly.
So, and that's why, I try to be as conservative as possible and hope that we just get windfalls, like with interest earnings.
Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Do what?
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. All in favor?